Hello, and welcome to our program, Astronomy for Everyone. Now that we're in the midst of summer, it's time to talk about the constellations and star lore of summer. With me here in the studio is John Schroer, member of the Ford Club and our AFE staff. John, it's good to be with you again.
It's nice being with you, Don.
Now, summer, a lot of very interesting constellations. The first one that comes to mind is Hercules and that fabulous open cluster.
That's right. Hercules is the first constellation of summertime. During July, it'll be at the very top of the night sky. We'll go ahead and bring up a star atlas image of the constellation of Hercules. Now, Hercules itself really doesn't have any really bright stars. It will look like a keystone, the main stone at the top of an archway. Now, Hercules is famous because of the legend of Hercules. Now, that was what the Romans called him. His name in ancient Greece was actually Heracles. And he was, after being sent into a madness, which he accidentally killed his family, he was sent on 12 tasks of Herculean size, 12 amazing things he had to do to redeem himself. Now, the nice thing about Hercules is, for astronomers, if you look near the bottom part of the little keystone shape, that you'll see something called M13. Now, M13 is actually a giant globular cluster. It is a group of about 100,000 stars located in Hercules. Now, globular clusters are have the oldest stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy. And they kind of surround the center of the Milky Way. And summertime is really nice because during the nighttime, Earth is facing toward the very heart of our galaxy.
That's right, and that's part of some of the other major constellations, the constellations of the zodiac and other ones as well.
That's correct. Now, the nice thing about Hercules is the fact that with it, summer's arriving, because ancient peoples throughout the world used the stars to announce the seasons. That's right. Now, there is something which you can look at down in the southern sky, and what we're going to do is show you one of the most important and brighter constellations in the night sky for summertime, and that's going to be Scorpius the Scorpion.
One of the few constellations that actually looks like what it's named for.
Absolutely. Now, here you're seeing an image of the entire southern Milky Way, as you can see it looking at toward the south from here in Michigan. You can see, besides the dark stuff, is dust clouds and gas clouds that surround the heart of our galaxy, and you're looking right down toward the center. You can also see the bright star, the red star, Antares, which is the heart of the Scorpion, and that'll be toward the right hand of the screen. And there are also, as you can see in this image, many different deep sky objects, and these are objects that usually require a telescope to see. There are open clusters, which are basically a loose gathering of stars. There are globular clusters, which are very tight, packed, globe-shaped clusters. And there are also glowing clouds of gas and dust, the nebulae. And there's lots of those to see in that part of the sky. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to try and bring up the map of Scorpius the Scorpion. And here you can see it looks like a giant fishing hook. In Hawaiian times, it was known as Maui's fishhook. A powerful god who wasn't very bright, who claimed he was a wonderful fisherman, but he never brought anything he caught back. Eventually, he hooked a part of the ocean floor up, and he pulled it up to the surface, and supposedly that's one of the legends of the creation of the Hawaiian Islands, which were built upon from that start by Pele, the goddess of volcanoes.
Interesting.
The bright star you can see a little bit to the left of the top of the constellation is Antares. It's a red giant star, and it is probably the brightest red star we can see in our sky, for any season for that matter. And its name actually means not Mars, or opposed to Mars. There was a lot of confusion between the red star Antares and the red planet. So the ancient Greeks decided we're going to call this not Mars. So
that's because that blue line that we have there is the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun, moon, and planets across our sky. And of course, the ancient peoples didn't understand the true nature of what the planets were.
So on occasion, you would have the red planet and the red star next to each other, and it confused them. The only way you can tell the difference is that Mars would move in front of the background of stars, and Antares would stay where it is, and Scorpius the scorpion.
Hence the name. Planete in Greek is wanderer.
That's correct. Now, Scorpius, at least down by the tail, the bottom of the hook where you can see right there, is Shauna, which is the stinger star. And from Scorpius down to the east, southeast, where you can run into our next constellation, Sagittarius, you're looking at the very center of the Milky Way. Now here we're looking at Sagittarius. Now in legend he is a centaur, half man and half horse. Here you can see the image. Now Sagittarius doesn't have any really bright stars such as Antares, but it does have enough medium bright stars to form what they call a teacup or a tea kettle shape. The triangle you can see on the far right is the spout of the teapot. The triangle on top makes the teapot's top, and then to the left side is the handle of the teapot.
And we would call this an asterism.
That's correct. It's not an image of the actual constellation. It is a picture that looks like a familiar object we see every day.
That's true.
Now, in Sagittarius, we have a wonderful deep sky object, which is actually a glowing cloud of gas and dust. This is
the Rosette?
The Rosette Nebula. Wait a minute, isn't that the Lagoon? That's Lagoon Nebula, I'm sorry. This is the Lagoon Nebula, and it's actually a giant cloud of gas which is being lit by stars on the inside, which gives it its kind of glowing type of texture.
It would be much like an incandescent bulb glowing from the inside, the gas being excited by the energy of stars buried within it.
That's correct.
And so when we're looking towards Sagittarius, this is the view towards the heart of our Milky Way galaxy, which is about 30 to 35,000 light years away.
That's correct. In fact, if you look at it carefully, you can see that the steam coming out of a teapot that's on the stove actually is the Milky Way, and the exact center is between Sagittarius and Scorpius. Now, there's a story of Scorpius and how he got his place in the sky. Orion the Mighty Hunter, which we see in the wintertime, boasted to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, that he was going to hunt down and kill every animal on the earth. Other stories say that he made that threat and that angered Gaia, which was the goddess of the earth and all of its animals. And so a conspiracy was entered into where the scorpion, who lives normally in the desert, was taken to the Greek forest to kill Orion in his sleep and stop him from murdering all the animals of the earth. Now, once he snuck into Orion's tent, eventually he did sting Orion. Orion cried out in help. Eventually, a doctor was brought. His name was Ophiuchus, where he killed the scorpion, and using a secret herb he had learned from a snake he had saved that had been trampled by hunters on horses, he healed Orion. Orion eventually became a protector of wildlife and earned a place in the nighttime sky. Now, Gaia asked Zeus to do the same thing for the scorpion, because he had given his life to protect all of his fellow animals. And so Zeus, in his wisdom, took the scorpion and put it in the summer sky, and Orion had been placed in the winter sky. And you would never see them in the same sky because they're in opposite seasons, winter and summer.
Exactly. We've talked about Antares, which is a prominent star in our summer viewing. Are there any other prominent stars we can tell our viewers about?
Well, in the southern Milky Way, our view from Michigan to the southern part of the sky, Antares is the only really bright star. I did want to get back to Ophiuchus. He is actually known as the 13th zodiac constellation. Here you see an image of Ophiuchus. He looks like a giant oval with some lines sticking out. It's not a really well-defined image of the doctor. And it, too, does not have any bright stars. So there are some interesting objects of the deep Milky Way that we can see, but there's no real bright stars in either Sagittarius or Ophiuchus.
Well, this has been a really interesting conversation, John, and if you have a question or would really like some more information, you can visit our website. The address is down there at the bottom of your screen. And up next is Term of the Month, and after that, we'll be back with more of summer constellations and star lore. Welcome back. In the first part of our program, we were talking about two of the major constellations of the summer sky. In this part, we're going to talk about some of the other constellations, the stars that are found there, and some of the stories behind them. Here with me is John Schroer. John, what about these other constellations and stars?
Well, the next constellation we'll talk about takes you from Scorpius and Sagittarius to the big three that are near the top of the sky in July. So we're going to talk about Scutum. Now, Scutum is a very small constellation. It's Latin for shield. It's not very large, has no bright stars that you can see with your eyes. But it is renowned among astronomers as being home to the Scutum star cloud. And this is an area of the sky that is rich with literally thousands of stars. They're not shaped like a globe, like a globular cluster, and they're not an open cluster, but it is a part of the Milky Way that has many thousands and thousands of stars. Now, if we move off from Scutum, then we hit something called the summer triangle. And these feature the three brightest stars in our summer sky. Here is a shot of the summer Milky Way, and you will see the bright stars. The one at top is Vega. The one to the right is Altair, and then finally there's Deneb. Now these stars appear to be the same brightness, and you might think they're the same distance from the Earth, but they're not. The closest star is going to be the one to the right, and that is Altair. It's in the constellation of Aquila the Eagle, and it's the one closest to the Earth, actually. It's about 17 light years away.
That's not far at all, astronomically speaking.
This is true. If you had to drive there, it'd be a long summer trip, because in miles, it would be approximately 102 trillion miles. Or in other words, when you're seeing that star in your backyard sky, you're seeing what the star looked like 17 years ago, because it takes that long to travel from that star to your eyes on the Earth.
Hence, light year, the distance that light travels in 1 year.
Or about 700 million miles an hour for an average. The second closest star is the one at the top of the image, and that's Vega. Some people like to say Vega, but I keep recalling the 70 subcompact they sold in the 70s. Vega is about 27 light years away. It's the only really bright star in Lyra, the musical harp. In miles, you would have to drive approximately 162 trillion miles. So it's 10 years farther out, which means you'd be seeing what that star looked like in 1984, 27 years ago.
Wow.
And it's a really bright, in fact, it is the brightest star in the entire summer sky.